today's episode of Fish Whispering, I'm going to show you one of my favorite passions in fly fishing, and that's making a bamboo fly rod. And you start with a stick of grass, 12 feet long. You get it from Mandy Royer, just north of Seattle. You get about a 12-foot culm of bamboo, and I'm going to process this stick of grass to make a finely honed, hollow bamboo rod with the delicacy, finesse, and power to handle just about any fishing situation. And I'll show you a few steps that I do to get to the finished product, and then we're going to go to the river and see how a classically made modern bamboo fly rod can work. After I get the individual culms cut with the node spacing, 2-2 node spacing, the butts and the tips section, I'm going to split them into rough strips and then cut them with my hand mill into triangles. So once I get done, I'll have about a dozen strips this wide. I might trim a few of them up just a little bit. And then I'll knock the node joints on the pith and the enamel side, knock those down until I have a straight piece of bamboo. And then I'll take it to the hand mill where I'll put a taper on it, give it a triangle, and get it ready to fit into a 6-sided bamboo rod. This is a dark little corner of my workshop in the basement. But this is where I do a lot of my hand planing of the bamboo strips. And I'd like to show you some of the different stages that the bamboo goes through after you split it out. So what happens is, we start with the strips that I was working on earlier. And you can kind of see the node bumps there. This is on the pith side, there's the enamel. And what I need to do to get this into more or less a flat rectangle, I need to knock that node flat so that I can work it a little bit more accurately and come out with a straight strip with no interruption. So from there, sand out the nodes, and what we end up with is just a nice little flat spot on that strip. And then once I have this long, skinny rectangle, I can take this and put it on my Morgan hand mill, and now I can plane both sides of the strip at the same time. This is a device that Tom Morgan, who was a rod maker known for his time when he owned the Winston Rod Company in Twin Bridges, Montana. I had the opportunity to tutor and be mentored by him in his shop in outside of Four Corners, Montana for a couple of years when he formed the company Tom Morgan Rodsmiths. One of the devices he came up with was this hand mill to increase the accuracy and reduce the time needed to plane out a bamboo rod. This is a tool I use quite a bit when I'm making bamboo rods. I turn ferrules, I turn my reel seat inserts, oftentimes I turn metal hardware that fits the reel on the rod, but this time I'm turning a cork grip. And you turn a cork grip by starting with individual cork rings, you glue them together, put them in a vise that squeezes them tight, and then once you have this solid tube, I go back and I make a cut with the lathe just to get it all level. And then I'll go back with sandpaper and I'll trim it up so that it custom fits an angler's hand. Perfect grip. So we just got the grip turned on the blank, and now I'm ready to attach the snake guides to the blank as well. And this is really one of the most fascinating parts and the most visually striking, as I'm going to take bright green thread to hold the snake guide, this twisted piece of metal, onto the blank so that the line can shoot through the rod and cast my fly out onto the water. The next part, it's applying varnish to the wraps to protect them from the weathering of fishing conditions and all the fish slime that tends to build up on my rods. So I use a little bit of polyurethane on the silk, rotate the blank in the rod rotator, and go to town. Watch the magic happen. So I have a wide brush. I'm putting just a little bit of varnish on there, steadying my hands, and I'm going to start with the tip, or where the foot of the guide is. Get that varnish built up, and it seeps. It'll soak right through the twist in the thread. So it's important I stay back from the edge at first, just to see where that varnish wants to go, to the base of that coil. And what that'll do is I'll kind of push the air bubbles that form around the foot of the guide. It'll push them straight out there and keep any air bubbles in the finished varnish, which are ugly. Well, I've got one rod ready to go and hit the river with, but before I send it to its owner in Florida, Joe wanted me to take it out fishing for a bit, test it and see how it works and give him a little bit of feedback. So I got a little 3-piece, 7.5 foot 4 weight. You could probably fish a 5, a 4, or a 3 weight. A lot of rods you can fish as many lines, well, within about 3 lines per rod. So I'm gonna throw a 4 weight line on it. Take it to the river, a little special place I have in mind where I often take rods after I finish them to test them out, and go see what we can find in the waters nearby. Welcome to my testing ground for bamboo fly rods. It's just a small stream near where I live and construct the bamboo, but after weeks of preparing these wonderful tools, I often come here just to try the rod out and become part of my surroundings, which really aren't so bad, and just see how the rod works, see if it does what I intended it to do, and to make sure that they'll work for the next customer that I send it to. This rod will soon be in Florida, but first I'm going to test it here in Montana on this little stream. I wonder what lies ahead. Come on, dogs. So I found a good looking pool that I'm going to fish. But before I can fish it, I've got to assemble the rod. And I'm taking the time to show you this because there really is a trick to assembling rods, bamboo rods especially, that have metal ferrules. Ferrules are the joints that you put them together at. These are made out of aluminum bronze alloy that I turned on a lathe, and there's a special way to put them together. Let me show you. Okay, so I've got butt section, midsection, tip section. It's best on any rod if you assemble from the tip down because it'll counterbalance better. So what I'm going to do is, the rule is rod together, hands together. So I'm going to line up, I like to hold the snake guides up just so I have a visual. I put my thumbs on the flats so I can feel where that flat is with the guides. Rod together, hands together, and I'm going to squeeze them in, and I'm using my pinky to kind of balance that alignment because this is a perfect tight vacuum seal when I push it in. I've got it lined in, and now I'm just going to push it in. Right there. A nice snug fit all the way. Okay, now from the midsection, got a bigger ferrule. We're going to go down into the butt. And I'm going to use more of my hand, but still rod together, hands together. I'm using my hand as a rest to line those flats up. Get that alignment just so. Okay, now I'm in. I'm going to push straight in. Just like that. Again, a nice smooth vacuum seal. That'll hold the rod, keep it from twisting. And once I put my reel on, I'm ready to go. All right, so now I've got my placement set. I found a nice looking pool. I can see it's pretty deep, probably about waist deep. I'm hiding in the willows, which blend in nicely with my bamboo rod, so the color scheme works, right? It looks good. And I'm ready to go, but on this trip, I'm worried much more about casting and presentation than I am the fishing. What's that mean? Well, I want to know how this rod bends, how it absorbs energy, and how it releases energy, and how it transmits my thoughts and feelings to the line, to the fly, and to the fish. Boom, flopping it on the water. And right now I have about a 14-foot leader on this thing. And I know instantly that I can carry the leader with just a few feet of fly line. And that is a great characteristic of these bamboo rods that flex fully, is they can carry very little weight. And I've still got power down in this butt section if I need it, to either set the hook or to cast farther as I load it up with more line. So instantly on my first few casts, I know I've got a great rod for in-close presentation. You can see I'm reaching out quite a bit as well to manage my line. And what I'm feeling that the rod does is that it balances really well with the reel, so it doesn't feel like I'm extending much weight. It actually feels very light in the hand, even though the overall mass is about maybe 2 ounces heavier than a graphite rod. I can still extend and get a good feeling of balance. I went from a dry dropper rig, so a fly that floats, to a fly that sinks behind it, to a double nymph rig. So I'm adding weight and subsurface flies to get deeper. I can actually see fish on the bottom, and this water is super clear, and they're hanging right on the bottom of the creek. So I need to get my flies a little deeper. They're not coming up. So now I get a check, I get a cast, I get to flex the rod a little deeper down into the butt section, closer to my hand, and it's gonna give me a different feel. It's a good test to see how much mass I can throw with this rod. Pocket water here. It's a small divot, a little riffle, fast riffle going into just a little bit of a scour. It's kind of subpar habitat really compared to the deep pools that are around here, but sometimes the fish like to move into these faster water habitat units when they're feeding, because a lot of insects will get caught, pushed out of that gravel, put through this pocket, and the fish can hide in the pocket and pick off any drifting insects. And it gives me more opportunity to cast, which is really what this day is about. More of a shallow run here. It seems like most of the fish we've seen, and the one we hooked into, was in a lot deeper water. It makes sense that the sun is super bright, and it's warming up as it reaches its apex for the day. Our apex moment is just about to come. There we go. I was approaching zenith and then lost a fish, but we did get a hookup. That was a beautiful fish. I set the hook, but it ran me into a little pile of moss over there, and the pinch barbs kind of let go. There we go. And that heavy water, there's the drop. Back, Eddie. Curse word on cable television time. All right, there's more in there. We'll get down there, right there. Oh yeah, good fish. Oh, look at this bend. Look at that bend. Okay, good stick, beautiful fish. All right, got to keep the right amount of pressure. You'll see when I fight a larger fish on bamboo how I have an obtuse angle. My rod tip is actually pointed out towards the fish, and I'm still pulling it in by lifting up. But I don't want to pull it back this way because you can put an extra strain where that metal hits the bamboo. And steel and bamboo grass do not flex the same. But I am looking at one of the most brilliant cutthroat I have ever seen. And this rod is just fighting it magnificently. Oh my goodness. Oh. There we go. Head shaking time. The rod's sucking up the energy. When you get this mass, that rod really needs to absorb the shock, or my line can pop or the hook can be thrown. Smaller fish, it's kind of tough. They flip anyway, but here we go. A brilliant native West Slope cutthroat trout. Pop that hook out, orange slashes, yet red, yellow belly, and back to the water. That fly touch a rock, and when I lift up I can feel the river current kind of whooshing around the sides of it. What's great about that is when a fish grabs it, I can feel the difference and set the hook. There we go. That's a hot fish. Oh, I can feel its head just brrr. Found out my fake bug is not a real bug or insect in the invertebrate world. And that head shaking through the hook once again, that's fine. I felt the take, set the hook, and I could just feel it. The sensations are magnified through bamboo. And it is a good feeling. Even when I feel them, throw the hook. And what's kind of happening is I have barbless hooks, and they're really smooth. They have a nice deep bend. But what happens is by keeping that line tight and lifting up, when the fish faces you and tosses its head, a lot of times it can twist that hook right out of its mouth. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it. I just keep running into it. What can happen, two things. One, you're not gonna set the hook right away unless you have a perfect connection, real tight. The more slack you have in your line, the less likely you are to set the hook. But also, you lose the fish and maybe you get discouraged that you're not catching them and get frustrated. And I mean, I like to hold the fish in my hand, that's for sure, but I'm here to improve my angling ability and really to feel the rod, work the rod, fish the water, and I know I succeeded in fooling the fish. You turn the fish. And where else do I want to be right now, except for right here, this place, right now. And it's important to keep your mind present in the moment and to not worry about it when the fish throws the hook. Beautiful deep hole on the inside of a river bend. Sweet little roll cast. Little drift. I'll go a little deeper though. There we go. There we go. Oh boy, yeah. All right, gotta keep that head from flopping. Oh, the rod tip's down. I got the rod kind of horizontal. There's a whole lot of sticks. There's a lot of troubles for the angler not watching what's going on. That's another hefty fish. Get some of my slack line up. Keep that head away from me. If it looks at me, I could be in trouble. Oh, I can feel it throb though all the way through the grip, even through the cork. Oh yeah, all right, buddy. Let's see what we can do here. Oh. All right, obtuse angle. Oh, a little bit. Oh. It's another fat, beautiful, wild, and this is a native West Slope cutthroat. Southwest Montana. Caught on a bamboo fly rod that I made, and checking it out and finding that it's doing all right. Even after the hook set, keep a little bit more of a low angle on it, you can get a little bit of fish slime on the old hands. It's a good thing. Oh, there's a hook set in the evening. Just to keep control of my line, get a little bit reeled up. And there's a fat fish for sure. Oh my goodness. This is a little different species than what we've been seeing. Look at this thing, it's a different species. That's a brook trout, or brook char rather. And it hammered it and fought hard. And that's actually a pretty fat and healthy fish, believe it or not. Generally, brookies don't get very big, and you'll notice the cutthroat, which they compete with in the native cutthroat habitat, get quite a bit bigger. But brookies are no less feisty. And as the sun goes down, that's a beautiful example of what you can do with a great cast on a custom rod. Great experience to find out that the many hours I've spent making this rod will someday make Joe hopefully equally as happy as I've been with it today. Casting, hooking fish, losing a few fish, and catching quite a few, and having a great time through the entire process of making a rod. And I hope you've been able to learn a little bit more about the craft of making the rod and can appreciate it, and hopefully someday you'll have a rod just like this for yourself.